Hey there, welcome to this Facebook Live event. We're coming to you from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren.
And I'm NASA astronaut Kayla Barron.
Now, Kayla and I were recently assigned to this new Artemis team, and we are among the initial group of astronauts that have been selected to help pave the way for NASA's next human missions on and around the moon.
The Artemis program will start with robotic missions to the lunar surface in 2021 with the goal of putting boots on the moon by 2024 and ultimately establishing a sustainable human presence on the lunar surface by the end of the decade.
And we are super excited to be a part of the team and excited to be here today to answer your questions.
If you have any questions while you're watching, please submit them on social media using the hashtag AskNASA.
All right, so let's kick it off with our first question from social media. Let's see, it is, what is Artemis? So Artemis is our next human spaceflight program. We've all heard of Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Skylab, the Space Shuttle program, the International Space Station. Artemis is our next human spaceflight mission to go to the moon with our first American woman and our next American man, putting boots on the moon in 2024. We are really excited about this opportunity and what it represents for our country and for our international partners.
Our next question is, what similarities do you see between yourselves and the Apollo astronauts? I think the Artemis team has a lot of similarities with the Apollo astronauts in that we all have this innate drive to explore. And we're super excited here at NASA in the astronaut office, but the larger human spaceflight team, to push the boundaries of what is possible and do things that have never been done before once again. The really cool thing about Artemis is we're going to be learning the technologies and operations capabilities that we need to push even further into the solar system, eventually even exploring Mars.
Okay, next question. Let's see, how is this program going to be different from the previous ones? What makes it special? Well, first of all, of course, we had the opportunity to fly to the moon with the Apollo program back in the late 60s and early 70s. And I've seen pictures of it. I'm inspired by what our Apollo astronauts did. But we are going to the moon for this generation. And that is incredibly exciting, especially with all the technologies, the audiovisual technologies that we have now. It's going to be a mission that we get to share with everybody in ways that we couldn't even imagine during Apollo. I think it is special because we are going to the moon as a team. We're going to put the first American woman on the surface of the moon and the next American man. And the plan is to go there with international partners. This is not just an American endeavor, but an international endeavor. We're going there for humanity. And the plan is to not just to go there and plant a flag and then come home. It is to continue to go back there and build a sustainable mission there where we are able to continue to do science and develop resources and learn and explore to prepare for our next great adventure, which is to go on to explore Mars.
Our next question is, what are your educational backgrounds? For me, I started having an interest in STEM in high school. I really enjoyed math and chemistry, and that kind of got me interested in engineering. And when I was at the United States Naval Academy, I majored in control systems and robotics engineering, and ultimately went on to the University of Cambridge, where I studied nuclear engineering. How about you, Kjell?
Yeah, so no nuclear engineering for me. So I've wanted to be an astronaut for as long as I can remember. And so reading stories about our early astronauts, it seemed like everyone was a pilot and then a test pilot. And that certainly is where our early astronauts, where their backgrounds were. So that's the path that I laid out for myself. And I decided if I wanted to be a pilot, then I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. And so going to the Air Force Academy with the plan to study engineering, I actually, at the Academy, discovered a passion for biology. And so then charted a new path for myself. I had a desire to challenge myself and yet to still be of service to the community. And so with this passion in biology, I decided to go into medicine. But I still had desire to work with NASA, to work with human spaceflight. And so joining those two things together, after becoming a physician and training in emergency medicine, I went on to study aerospace medicine and got a job here at Johnson Space Center as a flight surgeon, as a physician that helps to take care of the astronauts and the crew. And so that's the path that I followed to get to come and work here at NASA.
Our next question is, what exciting science will be done on the moon? That's something that I'm really interested in. I didn't have much exposure to the kind of stuff we can do in terms of planetary science and geology until I came here to NASA, but we've gotten to do already just some amazing geology training. And that has really given me an appreciation for what we might discover by exploring more of the moon. You know, in Apollo, we saw a tiny fraction of the lunar surface. It's kind of like if you got dropped off in the middle of a place you've never been before and you had to walk around. Anything you could reach just by walking is all you'd be able to learn about the planet Earth. And you would just have this tiny little view of what is out there. And so by going to the moon, once again, and putting boots on the moon to explore, we can do some fantastic geology. And I think one thing that really hit me in that geology training was on one of my training events, I was out there with Jessica Watkins, another member of the Artemis team and a member of my astronaut class. And we planned this whole day in the field, walked around, sampled rocks. And at the end of the day, Waddy said to me, you know, if we wanted to do that with the Curiosity rover, it would have taken us months. And that was where it really hit me how awesome it'll be to put human beings on the moon and start exploring that surface.
All right, so just a reminder that if you want to ask a question, use your favorite social media platform, and it's hashtag AskNASA. Is that right, Kayla?
Yep.
Okay. Hashtag AskNASA. So the next question is, why did you want to become an astronaut? Well, like I mentioned, I've wanted to be an astronaut for as long as I can remember. I love science fiction, and so I was immersed in books and movies from a very young age. But it wasn't until I watched the Space Shuttle Columbia launch in April of 1981. I remember very clearly my second grade teacher wheeling a television into our classroom so that we could all watch that launch. And that's when it really clicked for me that this is not science fiction. This is something that you could actually do. You could participate in. And I think that's really when I caught the bug of human spaceflight. And it's something that I've pursued then. And what a privilege to get to do this job and to be a part of this amazing team, not only here at Johnson Space Center, but partnering with the centers, NASA centers all over the country, with our commercial partners, and now in the International Space Station program and the Artemis program, partnering with international partners and exploring for humanity. And so I think it's all those things taken together that really made me want to become an astronaut. The challenge involved, and the opportunity to be a part of something that's bigger than me, that's bigger than the immediate community. It is something that is for humanity, and that's an incredible thing to be a part of. Kayla, why did you want to become an astronaut?
You know, my story is a little bit different, Shell. I didn't grow up wanting to be an astronaut. I definitely grew up being inspired by astronauts and what NASA was doing in space, but it's never something I really pictured myself doing. I went to the Naval Academy at first, kind of like you, thinking I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and then quickly realized my passion was elsewhere in the Navy and the submarine community. And I was drawn to working in that environment because of the incredible team that I found there. The sailors are so talented and so fun to work with, and it just seemed like the kind of environment that would be really challenging but also really supportive. And for me, that proved to be true. The 3 years I spent on my submarine were by far the most developmental years of my life. I was so challenged and really pushed to the brink of my capabilities, but that meant that I achieved more as with my team than I ever thought was possible. And so when I left my submarine, I was kind of thinking, what do I want to do next? I was deciding if I wanted to stay in the Navy and continue on, which I ultimately decided I wanted to do. But during that period, I had the chance to meet an astronaut for the first time. And I was talking to her about her experience aboard the shuttle, building the early space station. And I just kept thinking about how similar it was to a submarine. You know, the same things can kill you, the same things can keep you alive, and it takes the same kind of teamwork to succeed. And that was the first time it clicked for me that it's something I might be able to do. And the timing just ended up being perfect because it was only a few weeks later that NASA announced they were taking applications. And I had some really good mentorship, some people who encouraged me to overcome that imposter syndrome and throw my hat in the ring. And you know, I still kind of can't believe that it worked out, but here we are.
Well, we're excited to have you as a part of the astronaut office and the Artemis team. I'm excited. I know that we use submarines, living and working on submarines as an analog for space flight. So I'm excited for when you actually, when you fly, whether that's the space station or on the Orion capsule going to the moon, to actually get to kind of contrast and compare what those experiences are like, because it sounds like it's very, very similar.
I can't wait.
Let's see, the next question. How do you work out for this mission? You want to take that one?
Sure. That's something our NASA engineers and our trainers are really working hard on right now. One thing that's different about heading to the moon is on the space station, we have a ton of room, and we've been there for 20 years. So we've had a ton of time to perfect our technology and a ton of opportunity to fly some really good exercise equipment. But in Orion, in the space capsule, we're not going to have much room, and we might be in there for a while. And then as Gateway gets developed, Gateway will never be as big as the space station, so we won't have as much room. And then on the lunar surface, again, especially at first, we're going to be really constrained by the volume of our vehicles. And so right now they're working on basically a flywheel style machine that we could do a variety of exercises on, rowing or different weightlifting movements, some kind of resistance training, and they're just getting ready to test some of those prototypes right now.
That's awesome. So let's see, I just want to, we're getting hellos and congratulations from North Carolina, from Greece, France, Scotland, Brazil, Poland, Mexico. Thank you all so much for saying hello and sending your congratulations. We're really excited to have you along on this journey, and we hope that you will continue to tune in and track the Artemis program's progress. So let's see, next question, who do you look up to the most? Wow, that's actually, for me, kind of a tough question. There are so many. I think that you quickly recognize that when you have this opportunity, when you get selected into the astronaut office, you feel very much like you've kind of won the lottery. And then that opportunity to fly in space, to realize that lifelong dream is such a profound moment. But what you really recognize is that getting selected as an astronaut and getting to fly in space is not an individual achievement. It is not something that you achieve. It is something that people help you achieve. And so as I think about that journey that ultimately led to becoming an astronaut and getting to fly on the International Space Station, I think about all of the people that walked alongside me in that journey. So teachers, classmates, mentors, coaches, teammates, and of course, most of all, family and friends. And so in my mind, there is no one specific person that I really look up to. It is that group, that team that helped me achieve this dream.
Our next question is, how will your training for Artemis differ from what you've done previously? Some things will be similar. I think our foundational skills as astronauts will continue to apply, but some things will be really unique. You know, we're going to develop a landing system to land human beings on the moon. That'll be a whole new experience, and I'm sure very different from the flying we do around here in T-38s. And we're also going to be modifying how we train for spacewalks. Right now, we train for spacewalks in microgravity. It's less walking and more kind of pulling yourself around with your hands. But we're actually going to be walking on a planetary surface again. And we need to maximize the science we get done in each one of those spacewalks. So we're going to be doing a ton of geology training and really learning how to use the tools we have as the mission develops to get the most out of that time.
And I'll just add to that, Kayla, I think that was a great summary of some of those important differences. You know, the idea to me of getting to do that spacewalk, putting on the spacesuit and going out and walking on the surface of the moon, getting to merge the operations of getting in that spacesuit and going outside with science, actually going out and using the training that we've learned from our NASA geologists and all of the field geology that will be a part of the training, and putting that to work to find that exact rock or make that observation that helps with some scientific breakthroughs. And the idea of training for that, learning the field geology, and then getting to walk in the bottom of our training pool in the neutral buoyancy laboratory in a spacesuit, that is really, really cool. Okay, next one. Let's see. I've lost track of the questions. Here we go. Do you think you are mentally ready for such an achievement? Wow, that's a great question. So I think that it requires mental preparedness starting now, not just for the achievement of ultimately landing and setting foot on the moon, but from this point onward, as we are making sure that the spacecraft is ready to fly, making sure that we're getting the appropriate training, that we understand how the vehicle works and what we need to do in the vehicle, that mental preparation starts now. And I think that it is that mindset and the preparation that ultimately got us to a point in our careers where we were then selected into the astronaut office, and then ultimately engaged in training to become active astronauts, that we have already created the foundation for that mental preparedness. I think every one of us in the Artemis team and in the astronaut office is mentally, has that mental preparation and the fortitude to proceed with the training, and then ultimately to get to the moon and put those footprints on the moon.
All right, our next question is, what type of rocket will be used? NASA's developing a rocket called the SLS, or Space Launch System, and it's an incredible rocket with some amazing launch capabilities. So that's how we'll not only be launching crew aboard the Orion space capsule, but also all of the pieces of Gateway that will be in lunar orbit. So we're actually going to build a small space station that's going to orbit the moon, and we can fly Orion to the Gateway and then get on our lander from there. So expect some exciting launches coming up soon with all of that hardware.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the SLS launch, or hopefully feel the SLS launch. But, you know, I've heard stories of the Saturn V launching back in the Apollo days, and to experience a rocket that powerful launching is going to be an amazing thing, and not just for the astronauts that are on board, but for everyone who's gathered around to experience that launch at Kennedy Space Center. That's going to be a moving experience. Let's see, next question is, are you excited? I think profoundly excited. And
sure.
It's hard to explain. I think that there are many times in this job where you have kind of pinch me moments. And every day can be full of those. One of the unique and special parts of this job is that one day you can be training for a spacewalk in the neutral buoyancy laboratory, and the next day you're learning about lunar geology and maybe flying in the T-38. All of that to create a foundation of the skills that are required to be effective and successful astronauts on orbit. But in each of those opportunities, you know, when you are being lowered into the pool on a platform wearing the spacesuit, or you've just taken off in the T-38 and you're breaking through the clouds and being bathed in sunlight, honestly, when you're walking into our office building and your name is on the door, those are all pinch me moments. And today is one of those highlights of getting to be a part of this Artemis team that is going to embark on this incredible journey for our country and for humanity.
We're also getting some more shout outs from around the world, Shell. Romania, Australia, Ghana, Canada, the Netherlands, Sweden, Philippines, Ireland, and Bolivia. And some from closer to home, like Minnesota.
Minnesota,
yeah.
All right.
But it's a great lead into our next question, actually, which is, are we going to the moon with other countries? And the answer is absolutely yes. That's one of the really exciting things about the Artemis program, is this time we're going with our international partners. The space station has really taught us how much more powerful we can be in space when we partner with other nations and bring the best that every country has to bear, whether that's their technology, science, and engineering, or the astronauts themselves. And so we're really excited that we're going to be sharing these achievements with those other nations and with our partners from the other astronaut corps around the world.
That is awesome. The next question is, how accurate is Hollywood's portrayal of space? And it's a great question. Like I mentioned before, I absolutely love science fiction movies and the written word, and so space movies I have a particular affinity for space movies. I think it really just kind of depends on the movie. What's the point of the movie? It's just, if it's to thrill and excite and to make us imagine a possible future, I think sometimes those the director and the storytellers take an extra measure of artistic license. Certainly, there are some movies like Apollo 13 and that tend to be a little more historically accurate and try to portray the reality of spaceflight. And honestly, space is dangerous enough and exciting enough that I think that you don't need to take a lot of artistic license to make a story thrilling. But bottom line is that I love when storytellers and movie makers put the action in space, because it is an amazing thing to experience in real life, and it's fun to relive it in the movies.
Chell, what's one of your favorite space movies?
Oh boy, favorite space movies. I really liked, so Apollo 13 came out when I was an undergrad, and so that was a really special thing to watch. And then I really enjoyed The Martian. In fact, I was on the International Space Station. We were in Expedition 45. I was up there with my classmate and crewmate Kimiya Yui, one of our Japanese partner astronauts, and then also with Scott Kelly while he was on his one-year mission. And so NASA had worked with the producers of The Martian a little bit to help them with the realism of that movie, but we got an early copy, so we actually got to watch it on orbit before it came out, before it premiered on the Earth. And so that was really cool to see that movie. And I think one of the cool events that happened, it's very kind of a mundane thing, but when the protagonist is he's been left behind on Mars, and he's trying to figure out what his food situation is. He dumped out everybody's food on the table, and there were things like beef stroganoff and chicken teriyaki, and it was exactly the menu that we had right there on the space station. Those were the exact same foods, and so that was a really fun thing to experience. It's like, man, that's our menu. So that was pretty cool. And what's your favorite movie, Kayla?
That's awesome. I really like Apollo 13 and The Martian, too. My husband and I watched The Martian, I think, last weekend, and it just reminded me how good that movie is. But I grew up loving Armageddon because my big sister, like, one of her favorite movies is Armageddon, and we used to watch it all the time. And so I think in my quest to impress my big sister and spend time with her, I've seen Armageddon more than any other space movie, for
wow.
sure.
That is an artistic license movie.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's see.
I think our next one here was, what's the most challenging thing about being an astronaut for such an important mission? That's a really good question. I think probably just the preparation. I think we train really hard for these missions so that we're ready for any possible scenario. We try to imagine all of the things that can go wrong and know how to respond. And that's not just the astronauts in the vehicle, that's the ground support team. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people actively supporting any mission we have in space at any given moment. And so there's a lot to coordinate there, just the human aspect of the communication, the procedures, the technology, and working through that as a team, because those moments in space are precious, and we really want to get the most we can out of them and keep everybody safe.
That's awesome. All right, next Next question. Let's see, no. Oh, will you take a selfie on the moon with Earth in the background? That is a definite yes.
For sure.
So we'll need to plan so that the astronauts can both be in the picture, because a lot of the Apollo photos are of one astronaut or another, and so they have to set up a selfie stick or something so that they can get that epic picture. The two astronauts, surface of the moon, Earth in the background, and then immediately post that on social media.
Let's see, we got a few rolling in here from the audience. One of them we kind of touched on earlier, but the question is, do you have to be a pilot to be an astronaut? And I think Chell and I have proven that the answer to that question is no. Me coming from the submarine force and Chell from the Air Force as a physician. And it's not just the military either. You know, we have people from a variety of walks of life who come into NASA. As long as you study STEM and learn how to work on a team, you will succeed in the astronaut corps. So we have scientists, engineers, educators, doctors, military pilots, and folks from other areas of the military like Chell and I.
All right, next one is, how do astronauts deal with fear, and are you nervous? So, you know, when you are sitting on top of a rocket that has an incredible amount of power, but of also a lot of explosive potential, I think that there is always an element of nervousness there. But I think that fear comes from an uncertainty of the unknown, or it is a fear of the unknown. And so as Kayla was talking about our training, I think that is one of the things that we use to minimize fear and anxiety. That is, we practice every scenario, everything that was within our control. We practice and train for all of those emergencies, for all of those contingencies, and eventually you train out all of the unknowns, so that there's very, very little that is left in that darkness. And so I think that when you're sitting there, you're getting ready to launch, or you're getting ready to do a spacewalk. We are so well trained by the incredible team that we have here at Johnson Space Center and all over the world, that it really helps to minimize that fear and anxiety.
Got another question here. Why are we returning to the moon now? You know, I think that's a really good question. Here at NASA, we've been working long and hard to get to the point where we could send people to the moon to establish a sustainable human presence. We've learned some incredible things aboard the International Space Station over the past 20 years about living in space. But I think we're all feeling that itch to start exploring again, to do something new that's never been done before. And for a lot of us, we dream of eventually going to Mars, but that's a big challenge. It's a long journey, and we'll be working really without much help from the ground compared to what we have now. There'll be a communications delay, and we'll be months, if not years, from being able to come home safely if something goes wrong. And so the moon is the perfect proving ground for that. We really want to go and do some incredible science, but also learn how to live and work on another planetary body. And if not now, when? You know, Artemis really feels like a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do something incredible in space. And I think we're all just striving every day toward that goal.
And it looks like we've got time for one more question, and that is, so how do you become an astronaut? How do you become a part of something like this? And so I think that both Kayla and I, our backgrounds can attest to number one, set a goal. Identify something that you want to do. And if that is to be an astronaut or an engineer or a scientist that's working with us at NASA, then set that goal. And then find something that you're passionate about, something that you will work hard at, and then work hard at it every day. Do a little something, and do a little something every day, and you'll be amazed at what you're able to accomplish over a year, over 5 years, over a decade. And then when the opportunity comes, if we have an astronaut selection or an opportunity to work at NASA, come join us. We would love to have you come work with us on this amazing adventure that we're embarking on, the Artemis journey to the moon.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for our Facebook Live event today, Chell. Thanks everybody for joining in with us today. It was awesome taking your questions, and awesome to see you, Chell, even if it is from about 30
Virtually.
feet away.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really enjoyed this opportunity to answer your questions, and we look forward to you joining us on this journey.